Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second panel of our faculty symposium today, Feminisms Across Time and Space. I'm Elena Kreef, Professor of Women's and Gender Studies.
And I am Irene Mata, Associate Professor of Women's and Gender Studies. It gives us great pleasure to moderate this last panel in honor of our new president, Paula A. Johnson. Thank you, Paula, for your foresight and leadership in foregrounding feminisms and intersections as vibrant components of the work we do here at Wellesley College. The Women's and Gender Studies Department at Wellesley College was founded in 1982 when Professor Susan Reverby was hired to teach part-time. We were one of the first women's studies programs at any liberal arts college and remain one of the few independent departments in the country today. Over the past 34 years, we have grown from a program to a department with 6 tenured and tenure-track faculty and currently have 94 majors and minors, including 25 new health and society minors. In 2007, we expanded the name of our department from Women's Studies to Women's and Gender Studies to reflect the complexity and multiplicity of how we study not just women, but also gender as a category of intersectional analysis that includes race, class, ability, and sexualities.
Around the time that our department was formed, there was a critical intervention in the U.S. women's movement that demanded the inclusion of what was termed U.S. women of color and third world sisters. The singular form of feminism was considered too narrow to include the rich diversity of histories that could encompass women's lives from multiple social and geographic locations and communities. The evolution of our department has reflected the intersectional growth of our field. Our teaching and our research spans the social sciences and the humanities and includes history, health, sociology, film, literature, popular culture, religion, ethics, and cultural studies. Our students leave our classrooms and the college with a wide set of tools that help them to critique and understand structures of power and oppression in the world around them, in careers that are as diverse as the communities they hail from. They work as immigration attorneys, midwives, investment bankers, human rights activists, independent filmmakers, CEOs of companies, and professional entertainers, to name just a few. In all of these different fields, our students' education and training in intersectional feminisms has provided them with the critical skills necessary to navigate a world where inequality remains.
The panelists we're about to hear from represent the very best range of intersectional feminisms across its many intellectual and creative forms of expression. From an Indian dance representation of a literary text, to a centering of a womanist worldview, to a theatrical conversation of beauty, to visually capturing on film the values of an egalitarian community. The work of our panelists captures the rigorous methodology and excitement of scholarship and art rooted in a feminist practice of centering the lives of women. We are excited to have Paula join our community at a moment when so many of us have embraced an intersectional approach to our teaching and scholarship. Thank you all for coming, and thank you again to Paula for offering the faculty an opportunity to display the intellectual and artistic strength of our Wellesley community.
Please welcome our first presenter, Professor Layli Maparin.
Good afternoon. What a joy it is to be here, and how amazing that last set of panels was. Can we just give that group another round of applause? What a privilege it is to open this panel on feminisms across time and space in honor of our new college president, Dr. Paula A. Johnson. This panel celebrates not only President Johnson's commitment to women, but also, more broadly, her brilliant suggestion of intersectionality as an organizing principle for liberal arts education in the 21st century. As many of you already know, the term intersectionality was coined by critical race theorist and legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw And the concept of intersectionality was pioneered by feminists, Black feminists in particular, especially the Combahee River Collective that was based here in Boston in the 1970s and which has some connection to Wellesley College itself. Intersectionality neatly maps onto the liberal arts education in the 21st century because we've reached a point where all disciplines co-constitute each other and must be considered as always in relation. And I think that last panel really showed it, and we're going to see more of it now. To vigorously maintain an institution where the interconnectedness of all knowledge and knowledge production is recognized, illuminated, and encouraged goes beyond mere interdisciplinarity or even transdisciplinarity into another zone entirely, one where new forms of social, technological, and environmental problem solving become merged with the cultivation of leadership. And in this case, not just the empowerment of women, but the empowerment of all people, all society, through women's leadership, innovation, and genius. In this talk, I will discuss womanism, a perspective pioneered by Africana women. I will talk about the definition of womanism, the origins of womanism, and some examples of womanism in action. I'll reach back into African cosmology and reach forward to the present day, exploring connections as current as the Black Lives Matter movement. My goal is to show the distinctiveness of womanism and the value of womanism as a change methodology that brings us closer to our ideals of human equality, human well-being, and ecological integrity. People often ask, what is womanism? And what is the difference between womanism and feminism? In the introduction to my first book, The Womanist Reader, which documented the first quarter-century of womanist thought across the academic disciplines, I offered this characterization of womanism. Womanism is a social change perspective rooted in Black women's and other women of color's everyday experiences and everyday methods of problem solving in everyday spaces, extended to the problem of ending all forms of oppression for all people, restoring the balance between people and the environment or nature, and reconciling human life with the spiritual dimension. I also made the claim in this essay that womanism is not technically a version of feminism. Although there are many shared concerns, it is of a different kind. Womanism, I argued, hails from a different cosmological universe, a different geohistorical lineage than feminism. Feminism is a product of the West. Womanism is a product of the South. And by this, I mean the global South. It has flown beneath the radar of feminist histories of consciousness and women's studies genealogies for precisely this reason, because the West in the main doesn't think in Southern frames. The wellspring of womanism exists beyond the perimeter of the cosmological and ontological frame that produced feminism. Womanism today is the unsilenceable trace of global South cosmologies and epistemologies inflected by Western experiences and problem sets, remixed and recalibrated by diasporic travel across history, now applied to global problems in a globalized age. Let me say more. Womanism asks and answers the question, what would the world look like if crafted by Africana women from the perspective of a woman-inflected Africana cultural, cosmological, and epistemological frame? Womanism begins by naming this frame, acknowledging its existence, asserting its distinct attributes and implications, and affirming the validity of Africana women's identification with and employment of this frame. Womanism then proceeds to ask and answer questions about the world, particularly questions related to practical problem solving from this frame. These may be questions that pertain to the human condition, relations among and between humans, even questions concerning all humanity, or they may be questions that pertain to the natural environment, the ecosystem, the world of plants and animals and rocks and stars, with which, of course, human beings are interpenetrated, and humans' interrelations with this world, or questions that pertain to the invisible world, the spiritual world, the transcendental or immanent world, i.e. the metaphysical, supernatural, or divine world, and humans' interrelations with it. These three holistically interconnected spheres, first people, second nature, and third spirit, constitute the womanist triad of concern. What is the origin of this point of view? As long as I've been studying womanism, I've been reflecting on this question. In my forthcoming article, Into the Pangama, Questing for the Roots of Womanism in West African Women's Social and Spiritual Formations, I expand on a theme first argued by writer and activist Alice Walker, who in 1979 coined the term womanist in its modern usage. Womanism is not new, she stated, but rather is ancestral in nature, having existed for many generations without ever being labeled or named. The title of one of Walker's most famous essays, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, sums it up. We must look for our mother's and grandmother's genius in languages beyond those of the colonizer's tongue, because certain wisdoms, certain innovations, are not articulable in that tongue. Whether in gardens, quilts, or foodways, spiritual rituals, or blues or hip-hop aesthetics, Africana women have spoken in womanist dialects, carrying South-centered cosmological and epistemological understandings into Western contexts for purposes of psychic survival, community sustenance, cultural continuity, creative expression, innovation, and problem-solving. Another progenitor of womanism, Chikwenye Okonjo-Ogunyemi, a Nigerian literary critic and theorist, further expanded on this theme in her book, Africa Woman Palava, in a chapter titled An Excursion into Woman's Space. Here she elaborated on the ways in which Yoruba and Igbo religious mythologies and cultural role definitions provide templates for the womanist point of view worldwide. Oshun, Odu, Mamiwata, and Ori, for example, are archetypes of women's power, verbal authority, wealth, and wisdom, establishing not just women's existential equality, but also women's intrinsic necessity to life and society, and women's distinctive sovereignty within human relations. Women who understand themselves this way think differently about gender problems, or what she calls woman palava, and come up with different kinds of solutions to problems in the world at large. Ogunyemi also speaks of the Iyalode, queen, head, or chief of women, the acknowledged senior woman, and the Iyaloja, mother of the market, as examples of social roles that map the transformative power of women and motherhood, understood far beyond its biological connotation, onto complex social structures, bringing highly effective forms of conflict resolution, resource management, practical and metaphysical education, and moral leadership to communities large and small. The contours of an Africana women's problem-solving worldview, also known as womanism, can begin to be seen through lenses such as these. Being a developmental psychologist who has always focused on the self-society interface and the power of social institutions to shape human development for good or ill, I became captivated by a viewpoint on young women's development within the West African Women's Sandy Society. The late Sylvia Arden Boone, an art historian and the first African-American woman ever to be tenured at Yale University, presented an in-depth participant observation study of the Sandy Society in Mendiland, Sierra Leone, in her book, Radiance from the Waters, Ideals of Feminine Beauty in Mendi Art. Boone focused on Sandy as an institution of women's power and space of youth socialization where elder women transmit a corpus of knowledge and a set of viewpoints to adolescent girls, thus shaping them into people who will hold society together in ways both practical and metaphysical. This education takes place in the Pangama, the sacred Sandy initiation grove, a broad campus in the forest, also characterized as the world of beauty that Sandy makes. In this grove, on this campus, secluded from men and children, adolescent girls are systematically exposed to a cosmology, an understanding of what exists and how it came into being, including their own divine lineage and their role in creation. a value system, and a set of practical arts designed to make them not only effective adult individuals, but effective actors within a harmonious collective that ultimately encompasses women, men, children, ancestors, and the unborn, as well as the natural environment and the spiritual sphere. They learn how to mold society towards well-being and harmony, and are taught specific technologies for social transformation. Each is enjoined with a sense of responsibility for the collective, beginning with one another as women. Within the Pangama, within Sandy, they are bonded. I was fascinated by the specificity with which the leaders of Sandy transmitted Mendi values to the young adolescent girls, tasking them with responsibility for learning how to embody the values and helping them maintain them in the community at large. These values included things like the terminologies that are listed on this slide. Now, in the interest of time, and because I don't speak Mendi fluently, unfortunately, I'm not going to read all of these words and attributes, but I would like for you to take a look at this list and imagine in your mind saying these words that come from a language that is not of the West, but is of the South, and imagine what it is like in this environment for these things to be transmitted from elder women to adolescent girls in the interest of making a harmonious society filled with well-being for all people and the environment as a whole. I remember thinking when I read this, wouldn't it be amazing if we taught children here with the same kind of specificity about values that helped sustain our collective? Of course, as with all value systems, the Mendi-Sandy system presented by Boone is an idealization, an aspirational model. But what is striking is its clarity, its coherence, and its unapologetic presentation, particularly in the context of youth socialization. Girls in Sandy are also, as I mentioned, trained in practical arts. From homecraft and childcare to beauty, comportment, and self-refinement, to healing arts, herbalism, and naturopathy, to business practices and judicial mediation, the girls are exposed to a wide swath of skills for the betterment of themselves, their families, and their communities. Cultural wealth is transmitted through song, dance, and arts, which also conveys religious and mystical content, including messaging about the girls' divine origins, as I mentioned. As a result of all this, the girls become whole, responsible citizens, effective adults, and guardians of well-being for themselves, their families, their communities, and their ecosystems. Why did I link this account of Sandy's socialization of adolescent girls to womanism, particularly womanism in the West? I quote our colleague, Professor Philomena Chioma-Stedi, perhaps the world's leading expert on African women's leadership and Africana women's leadership methodologies, editor of the groundbreaking volume, The Black Woman Cross-Culturally, who wrote in her more recent book, Women and Collective Action in Africa, secret societies are important because they can serve as mechanisms for the mobilization of women for development and democratization. They also represent female power bases that have come into play in resisting underdevelopment and authoritarianism. They are among the best examples of women's associations serving as cultural mechanisms for socialization, non-formal education, and mutual support. As Professor Stedi points out later in the chapter, societies like Sandy also protect and defend women's rights because they are empowered by society, as she says, to reprimand and impose punishment on men who disrespect or use violence against women or mistreat women. As she states, an institutional mechanism is thus created which promotes mutual respect, interdependence, and complementary rights and obligations in male and female relationships. It also links women across tribes and nations because Sandy is multinational. Thus, in these societies, I see semblances of womanist thought and praxis as it shows up in contexts outside Mendi land, outside Yoruba land or Igbo land, outside West Africa, in the United States, the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, Australia, and beyond. I see what it looks like when women of African descent make the world and problem solve. I see women who always think in terms of people, nature, and the spirit world simultaneously, i.e. the womanist triad. I see women who care about themselves, each other, and their communities equally. I see women who know how to mobilize quickly and effectively when problems that threaten themselves or their communities arise. I see women who never doubt their equality, their value, or their power, and yet those whose use of power veers more towards power with than power over. I imagine mapping these sensibilities and techniques onto issues and problems that concern us here or around the world. For that reason, I will now shift our attention to examples of womanist praxis in action. An iconic example that has long inspired womanist scholars is Milla Granson, also known as Lily Ann Granderson. She was an enslaved African woman who learned to read and write from the children of the man who was enslaving her. She established a midnight school in her home for other enslaved Africans, which ran from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. She took in 12 students at a time, and over the course of 7 years, educated hundreds. She was discovered by Northern missionaries. A court case ensued since Mississippi law prohibited slave literacy. However, because this law prohibited whites from teaching blacks, but failed to recognize that blacks could teach blacks, she was acquitted. Later, as a freed woman, she was hired by the American Missionary Association as a teacher. Her bravery and ingenuity with regard to finding and executing a way to educate those denied formal education reflects the womanist value of starting where you are and relying on what you have on hand to achieve a social justice goal. Another example that always inspires me is the Newtown Florist Club of the Newtown neighborhood in Gainesville, Georgia. This club was formed by a group of African American women in 1950 to make floral wreaths for churches and cemeteries to honor their deceased. Dressed in white in summer and black in winter, the women would walk from door to door soliciting donations for the wreaths. The women of the club began to notice that they were making an alarming number of wreaths, particularly after the Purina and Cargill factories were established in their neighborhood in the 1950s and 60s. They also noticed a rise in health problems, such as cancer or various strange sicknesses within their community. This led to environmental research and the discovery that their neighborhood was also located on an old landfill. The ladies of the Newtown Florist Club approached and indeed lobbied the state and the EPA to address the health hazards. Years of fighting and lobbying only produced mixed results, however. In the process, the club realized that their community needed many different kinds of supports. So they started other programs, such as a summer leadership program for girls and efforts to get more green space in Newtown. They also hosted an environmental justice conference. Yet many of their efforts were small and quotidian: bathing sick people in their community, burying people who couldn't afford it, fixing meals for kids in the neighborhood, and creating a basketball court for neighborhood youth in one of their own yards. This style of mixing formal and informal efforts and addressing institutional and personal issues simultaneously is very womanist, and as is approaching problems from three angles: social, environmental, and spiritual at once. This is textbook womanist activism. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about resonances between womanism and the Black Lives Matter movement. Founded by three Black women, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi, two of whom are queer and one of whom is an immigrant, this decentralized movement arose in response to an unaddressed community concern around killings of Black men, women, and trans people by police. The assertion that Black Lives Matter is as much an existential claim as a rallying cry rooted in the African cosmological tenet that human worth is inherent in being, a tenet that defies prevalent Western notions that human worth must be earned or is granted in a taxonomically reductive, hierarchical logic only to some. As such, this rallying cry is as much an attempt to reorganize reality by reorganizing consciousness as it is an attempt to draw media attention to the problem that spurred it. By utilizing social media, in this case Twitter, Garza, Cullors, and Tometi used a sisterly mobilizing tactic not unlike that of their Sandy sisters, who with a recognized call or sign that spreads like wildfire, can convene the human resources to demand change, shut down a process, or undertake an intervention of huge proportions. In fact, the spontaneous, multi-layered, and distributive nature of the Black Lives Matter strategy which is directed at institutions and individuals towards both public life and private consciousness, reflects multiple aspects of womanism, including a challenge to dehumanization, calls to greater inclusion on multiple fronts, an invitation to bridge building based on the assertion of equal worth, and ancestral links to earlier social justice movements, including the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement, African independence movements, and even feminist and queer movements. Like womanism, Black Lives Matter is grounded in revolutionary love, an unbreakable bond of human connectedness that demands recognition that we are all inherently beings of light, of a kind, even if and when we struggle because we fail to see these things. There is much promise in the spirit of this effort. A womanist approach could be applied to many grave and seemingly intractable global problems, including terrorism, climate change, and the eradication of global poverty. Although the struggle to become part of the conversation is often uphill in a world that still tends to devalue and question the genius of everyday women of color. Yet womanism holds a place in the academy and beyond, not only for these women, but for all people of any gender or ethnicity who share these sentiments and this orientation towards vivifying humanity and the planet. It is something that would aid us greatly in realizing the theme of this event, creating new futures. In closing, womanism, born from Africana women's culture and history, enters and engages global politics from a distinctly African cosmology and consciousness. It speaks not just to or about Africana women, as many have ventured, but rather to all humanity and indeed all living kind, from the standpoint of Africana women. And yet it extends with its politics of invitation to people of all genders and backgrounds. What womanism brings to the conversation, reflective of its triad of concern, is a holistic model of social change that holds sacred human beings and human communities, the environment that nurtures and sustains us, and which we should also nurture and sustain, and that elusive, invisible realm that goes by many names, from spiritual to metaphysical to transcendental, energetically undergirding all that exists. This is the kind of intersectionality that is both rare and badly needed in today's social and environmental problem-solving context, so I invite you to learn more. Thank you. Our next presenter is Smitha Radhakrishnan, Associate Professor of Sociology.
Push! Pull! Push! Pull! And the strong hand went to work for a fourth time, and none too soon, for river water, seeping into every hole it chose, was spreading over the mother's hips. Coming to, she heard no cries, only her friends encouraging coos. Nothing happened for so long that they both thought they had lost it. Then the baby whimpered, and the mother looked. "20 inches of cord hung from its belly, and it trembled in the cooling evening air. The wet, sticky women clambered ashore to see what indeed God had in mind. Spores of blue fern float in hollows along the river's edge, in silver blue lines, hard to see unless you are in or near them. Lying low at the river's edge when the sunshots are low and drained. Often, they are mistaken for insects, but they are seeds in which the entire generation sleeps, confident of a future. Believe that each one has one, that it will become all that is contained in the spore, that it will live out its days as planned. But this moment of certainty lasts no longer than that, longer perhaps than the spore itself. At the bottom of the heart of every human being, from earliest infancy to the tomb, there is something that goes on indomitably expecting. In the teeth of all experiences of crimes committed, endured, and witnessed, that good and not evil will be done to her. It is this that is sacred in every human being. On the edge of a river's bank, on a cooling summer evening, two women struggled under a shower of silvery blue. The water sucked and swallowed beneath them.
This is a very hard act to follow. Good afternoon. My name is Salem Mokrea, and I teach film productions and film history in the art department. I am very happy to be part of this symposium honoring our new president and to screen a small piece of my newest film project, Auramba's Utopia. Within the last week, I spent 6 days in Turin, Italy, attending the 11th biennial Terra Madre Salon de Gusto, a project of Slow Food International. It is the largest fair of food, wine, coffee, and other sustainably produced gastronomic products. The Slow Food International, whose logo is the snail, was started by Carlo Petrini. In 1989, an irate Petrini marched for days in front of the Spanish Steps in Rome with signs and slogans protesting the opening of a McDonald's restaurant there. Thus began the slow food movement. Now this movement embraces 150 countries over 5 continents. 7,000 delegates attended this year's fair and hundreds of workshops and panel discussions. You may ask, what has this got to do with today's event? Or why was I attending this conference? I'm working on a documentary film about a special community in Ethiopia. Zumra Nuru, the founder of Auramba, and his wife, Nani Kibret, were invited to attend the conference. This couple doesn't travel much outside Ethiopia, so I wanted to use this opportunity to get some more footage. But it turned out to be so much more. In Carlo Petrini and Slow Food, I saw the reflections of Zumra and Auramba, one located in a European metropole, the other in a remote village in Ethiopia. Slow Food and Auramba are both products of visionaries who rejected the prevailing conventions and believed in the potential for all to live in harmony with each other and our environment. Before you see the film, I would like to give you a little background on Zumra. About 70 years ago, Zumra was born into a traditional agrarian Muslim family in a remote village in northern Ethiopia. He never went to school. As a mere child, he started questioning why things were as unequal and unjust as he observed in his village life to be. He dreamt of a society where people could live in peace and full equality, regardless of who they were. 45 years ago, that dream materialized into what is now known as Auramba, a society based on true equality in all aspects of life, where there is no difference in treatment based on gender, class, or age, where organized religion has no place, and where all people work to support each other and care for the weak among them. What makes Auramba unique is the same spirit that underpins Slow Food's resolve to go against the grain and to bring together people who believe in the human capacity for creative solutions to great challenges. And now, thanks to Layli, I can call Zumra a womanist. I arrived in Wellesley in 1993 when President Diana Chapman Walsh was inaugurated. As I prepared to end the teaching phase of my life, here I am, welcoming President Paula Johnson. I couldn't have wished for a more fitting occasion to share this short piece with you. It expresses the hope of a bright future at a time of new beginnings for Wellesley. As we inaugurate you, Dr. Johnson, we are investing our aspiration in you for a fresh, bold, and inspired leadership. This symposium is a very good start. Thank you, Pat Berman, the selection committee, and Jalrith Waldron for pulling it off in such spectacular manner and using this opportunity to showcase the humanities, arts, and sciences, emphasizing our commitment not only to the diversity of disciplines and ideas, but to expressing our commonality in creativity. At the end of our panel, I'll be happy to give you information on how you can learn more about Auramba and Slow Food International. Thank you, and now I'm thrilled to share with you Auramba's Utopia.
አውራምባ ማለት የማህበረሰቡ ውጤት ከሌላው ለየት ያለ ስላለ በዚህ ነው የሚታወቀው። አውራምባ የሴቶችን እኩልነት፣ የህፃናት መብት፣ የወደቁ ሰዎችን ማገዝ፣ ከውሸት ከሌብነት ከነገረኝነት ነፃ ሆኖ ሙሉ የሰው ልጆች ክብር መሰጠት አለበት ከሚል ነው አውራምባ ያነሳሁት። ሰዎች ከሚያደርጉት መሰራት የሚገባው ነገር ቀርቶ መሰራት የማይገባው ነገር ሲሰራ እያየሁ ይህ ለምን ሰዎች በሰዎች ላይ በራሳቸው ሊፈልጉት የማይገባው ነገር በሰዎች ላይ ለምን ያደርጋሉ እያልኩ ነው። ሰዎች ከሚሰሩት ነው ማለት ነው። የሚወራበት ክበሮች ነበር። በእርሻ ስራ ላይ ይውላሉ። በጉልጉሎ፣ ባረሞ፣ ባጨዳው፣ በመዶሻ ሸክም እናቴ ከአባቴ ጋር አብራ ትውላለች። ማታ ላይ ሲመለሱ የአባቴ ስራ ጎሎ የእናቴ ስራ ከቤት ይከተላል። ድስቱ፣ ምጣዱ፣ እንጨት ማቅረቡ፣ ማጫወቱ፣ እግር ማጠቡ የዱሩን እንዳገዘችው ሁሉ የቤቱን ስለምናግዛት ነው። አሁን እግሩን እንኳን አይታጠብላትም። ለምን የሚል ጥያቄ ነው ማለት ነው። የኔ እናትና አባት ብቻ መስሎ ይታየኛል። እያየው ስሄድ የሁሉም የሴቶችና የወንዶች አዳር አንድ አይነት ነው እና ለምን ነው። ሁለተኛው ህፃናቶችን በማይ ጊዜ እግረ ተከልከሉ ጀምሮ አቅማቸውን ያላገናዘበታል ሲሰጣቸው ያለ ያ ስራ ሲበላሽባቸው ሲጠፋባቸው አቅማቸው ግምት ውስጥ ሳይገባ ለምን አጠፋ ለምን አበላሸ የስሜት መውጫ ዱላ ነው የሚሰጣቸው። ለምን ህይወት አደሉ አቅማቸውን ያላገናዘበ ስራ መሰጠቱ አላበለው ለምን የሚል በአካባቢ ማህበረሰብ አስታዲየም የሚረዳ ይሳታል። በሌላ ቦታ እየተዘዋወሩ በአስታዲየም የሚረዳ ይፈለጋል። እኮ አስራ 13 ዓመቴ እስቴ ተነስቼ ወደ ጎጃም ተጎጃም ወደ ወሎ ተወሎ ወደ ጎንደር እያልኩ ለ5 ዓመታት ወደ ወላጅ ሳልመለስ በዚያው ቆያለሁ። አሳልፍ ይረዳል።
Adjective good, better, best.
ይህ የአውራምባ ማህበረሰብ ሲመሰረት መጀመሪያ ጊዜ ምንድን መቋቋሚያ ሀብት ነበረው? በምንድን ነው የተቋቋመው?
ገበሬዎች ነበር። ሞፈርና ቀንበሮቻችንን በሩታችን ይዘን የተቋቋመ። ከዚያ ውጭ ካፒታል አላስፈለገንም። ካፒታሉን ከመሬት ስለነበረ ብዙዎቹ እብድ ነው እብድ ነው ይላሉ። በብጀት መልክ ታማ ነው እያሉ በህፃንነቴ ታማ ነው እያሉ ብዙ ነገር አይሰጡም። አንዳንዶቹ ይጠይቁኛል። በጥያቄ በጣም ይገረማሉ። ከመገረም ውጭ የሚያደርጉት ነገር የለም።
ከዕለታት አንድ ቀን እንዲሁ ወደ ጎንደር አልፎ ሲሄድ እዚህ አካባቢ እኛም ወላጆች ያገኛቸዋል። ይህን አስተሳሰብ ሲነግራቸው ሀሳቡ ጥሩ ነው፣ ግን እንዴት ሊሄድ ይችላል ታስባለህ? ምክንያቱም ከወላጆቻችን ያገኘነው ባህል አለ። ሴት አገልጋይ እንድትሆን ነው የምናውቀው። እኛም ሚስቶቻችንን በዚህ አይነት ነው የኔ ማብራት ማለት ነው። ሌሎችም ሴት አገልጋይ እንድትሆን እንጂ አታውቅም ብለን ነው የምናስበው። አንተ ደግሞ እኩል ናቸው ትላለህ። እንዴት ይሄ የመጣ ባህል ይቀረናል ታስባለህ? አንተ ደግሞ ውሸት የሚጥፋ ነገረኝነት የሚጥፋ ምቀኝነት የሚጥፋ ነው የምትለው። ውሸት ደግሞ የገበያ መሸጫ ነው የሚባል። እንዴት ይሄ ይጠፋል ታስባለህ? ጸብ ይጥፋ ትላለህ። ጸብ አብረን የተፈጠረ ነው ብለን ነው እንግዲህ የምናስበው። ይህ ባህል እውነት ይለቃል ታስባለህ ወይ? አንተ ጸብን አስወግደህ ምድራዊ ገነትን እንፍጠር ነው። ምድራዊ ገነትንስ መፍጠር እንዴት ይቻላል የሚል ጥያቄ ነበረኝ ወላጆች የሚያነሱልን።
ይህን ስንመሰረት የአካባቢው ሕዝብ አልዋጥለት ብሎ ሀሳቡን አንገድፈው በማለት በጣም በብዙ ስቃይ አግኝቶናል። እያደሙብን እናጥፋቸው እየተባለ መጀመሪያ ስንናጥፋው ሲሰጠፋ ይበተናል የሚለው ያው በመንግስት ጥንካሬነት ነው እንጂ አካባቢ እዛ ጊዜ አላመነበትም። ብዙ አላመነበትም። አድማ በጣም ቆንጆ ነው። አሁንማ እኮ ይኸው እንደምታውቁት በመጠያትም በቴሌቪዥንም በሁሉም ተላልፏል። አገር ዓለም መንግስት አውቆናል። እና ዛሬ ይኸው መብራት ያለ ይኸው ወፍጮ ያለ ሱቅ ያለ እህሉን አምጥተው ይሄ ነው የሚያውቀው ገበሬው ይሄ ነው አድጀባቸው እንደልባችን ሆነናል። ቆርቆሮ ኃይል ነው ምስማር ኃይል ሁሉ ተሟልቶ እያገኙት ስለሆነ በጣም ደስተኛ ናቸው። አንዳንዶቹ ፊት ሲያጣቁሩ የነበሩት እንዲህ ያሉትን ሰዎች ነው ወይ ያለሰራቸው ለካ እንዲያው
በተወሰኑ ሰው እየተነሳን እየሰማን ታሪካቸውን ስናጠፋ የነበር ነው። ለካ ተሳስተናል የሚሉ ናቸው ብዙዎች።
በውሃ ችግር በጣም ችግር ላይ ስንሆን እጃችን በዘጠና መጠለት የቆፈርነው 14 ሜትር ነው ርቀቱ። ወደ ግንቦት ወደ ናዘር ምንም ውሃ ይጠፋል። ይህ እጅ ጉድጓዱ ማለት ከዚያ የግድ ወደ ምንጭ ነው የምናደው። ወደ 2 ኪሎ ሜትር የሆነበት ነው። አሁን የአካባቢያችን አረንጓዴ የቱሪስት ቦታ ነው። አረንጓዴ ማድረግ ሲቻል ከተቻለ ማስበለለ መጠጥ ራሱ ይኸው ችግር ነው። የውሃ ችግር በጣም ችግር ነው።
መጀመሪያ ገበሬዎች ነበር። በደርግ ጊዜ የወያኔ ያላቸው ተብሎ በ80 ዓመተ ምህረት በተሰደቡበት ጊዜ ተሰደን ቆይተን በ85 እና በ86 ዙሪያ ስንመጣ ሰላም አግኝተን ስንመጣ ሻክም መሬታችን በገበሬው እጅ ተይዟል። መንግስትን አስመክኩና ስጦት ስንል መስጠት አልቻሉ። ከዚያ መሬት ባይገኝም ከመሬት ላይ ብቻ የተንጠለጠለ ህይወት አይደለም። ከሰራን ወደ ኢንዱስትሪ ሰርተን ማደር እንችላለን ስንል የግድ በንባና በሙያ ገብተን ወደ ኢንዱስትሪ ገብተን የአልባሳት ስራና ወደ ንግዱ ገብተን እንዳለን ነው።
ሽመና ስራ ስንገባ በባህላዊ ሽመና ሴቶችም ወንዶችም ገብተን ሲገባን ሰራን። እሱን እየሰራን እንዳለን ጥቃቅን አነስተኛ ኢንዱስትሪ ማለት ነው። እነሱ ለዚህ ወደ ቡድን ሲመጡ እኛንን እየሰራን ሲያገኙን እኒህ ሰዎች የተሻለ ስልጠና ብንሰጣቸው ለራሳቸው ቆርጦ ለሌላው ሞዴል የሚሆኑበት ነገር አለ ሲሉ ከዚያ ስልጠና ሰጡ። እዛ እያልማሳለን በኋላ መጨረሻ ላይ የውሎ አበሉ ሲሰጠን ተወያየን። የውሎ አበሉ ተሰጠን። ወስደን አሁን ይህንን በላን። ሳምንት 15 ቀን ሊያበላን ይችላል፣ ግን ዘለቄታው ነው። ይህንን አሁን መከፋፈል ይችላል። አሁን መውሰድ የለብንም። አሁንም ይህን ሽመና ማስቀጠል እንዴት አድርገን ማሽኑን አሁን ዙምራ እኔ ጠርቤ ገጥማለሁ። ሰው ይወሰይት ሪድ ነው የማይገኘው። ሪዱን ደግሞ እሱ ለምነዋለሁ። ስለዚህ አሁንም ጥሬ ዕቃ ማምጫ አድርገን ማህበራችንን ማቋቋም ነው ያለብን እንጂ ይህን ተጠቃብለን ብንወስደው ምንም ትርጉም እንደሌለው ተወያየን። ያችን የጥሬ ዕቃ ማምጫ አድርገን ዙምራ ገጠመን። በመጥረቢያ እንግዲያ በማሽን በመጥረቢያ ጠርቦ ገጠመው። በአመት 50 ብር የሚካፈል ነበር በማህበሩ በአመት 50 ብር ማለት ነው። ከዛ እያደገች ወደ 70 ወደ 100 እያደገ ማህበራችንን እያደገ አሁን ዛሬ በአሁኑ ሰዓት ማህበር ስናደርግ እያንዳንዱ አሁን የዴ ባለፈው 6,000 መካፈል ለእኔ 6 ለዙራ 6 ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ 12,000 ማለት ነው። እንግዲህ ከዛች ከ50 ብር ተነስተን አሁን ደግሞ ይሄ ሽመና በጣም አስቸጋሪ ነው። እንግዲህ ከ94 ጀምሮ ለስንት ዓመታት ነው አሁን ይዘን ያለን። ሰው እየተቸነፈ ነው። ሌላ ስራ የለንም። ይኸው ብቻ ነው። ሰው እየደከመ በጣም ኩላሊት በሽተኛ የሆነ ጨጓራ በሽተኛ የሆነ በጣም በአሁኑ ሰዓት በተለይ ኩላሊት ላይ አልተቻለም። ይሄ በመሆኑ አሁን ህዝቡ አሁን ስራ አቁሟል ማለት ይቻላል። ምን እናድርግ? ዝም ብለን ማየት የለብንም። ራዕያችን ሰፊ ነው፣ በጣም ሰፊ ነው። በጣም ብዙ ነገሮች ያስቀምጠናል። በአንድ ጊዜ ላንደርስበት እንችላለን፣ ግን እንዲሁ የተቀመጠውን እቅድ ደረጃ በደረጃ ቀስ ቀስ እያልን መሄድ አለብን። ስለ አውራምባ ሲነሳ እንጀራ ይጋግራል። ወንዱ ሴቷ ታርሳለች። በላይ ብዙ ላይ የሚዋል ይሄ ሳይሆን ማህበረሰቡ ዘንድ ምን ነገር አለ? ሚስጥሩ መታወቅ አለ። እንዴት ነው እየኖሩ ያለ? ዋናው የሚያስፈልገው ምንድን ነው? ይሄ ስራው መገለጫው ሊሆን ይችላል። የሀሳብነት እኩልነቱ አለለ፣ ፍቅሩ አለለ፣ ተሳሰቡ ከሌለ ስራ ይሰራል።
ስንት ሰዓት ነው የምትወጣው? ትባለች 6 ሰዓት 7 ሰዓት 7 ሰዓት 7 ሰዓት
መማሪም አለመማሪም ምንም አይደለም ለኔ። መማር ጥሩ እንደሆነ አውቃለሁ። ግን የተማሩ ሰዎችን የሚሰሩትን ሳይ ሰውን ማዳን አልተቻለም። መማሩስ ምን ትርጉም አለው የሚያሰኘኝ አንዱ ሰው ወርቆ ሰው አልፎት ከሄደ መማሩስ ምንድን ነው? ለማን ነው የምንማሩ? ለምን የሚል ለነገሩ እኔ ትምህርት የሚጠይቅ ስራ አይደለም የሚሰራ ትምህርት የሚጠይቅ ስራ አይደለም። በአይኔ የማያዩ ብልሽቶች ናቸው። ደስታ የማያዩ ጥሩ ነገር የማያዩ መጥፎ ነው የማያዩ ተመጥፎ ወደ ደ ነው መውሰድ ደግሞ ጥሩ ነው ይገባኛል። አንዳንድ ጊዜ ብቻ ግን ይቆጨኛል ቋንቋ ባለመማር። ቋንቋ ባውቅ ኖሮ ይህን ሀሳቤ በአንደበቴ ገልጥ ነበር። ባለመማር ይህን መለጣት ኢትዮጵያ በተፈጥሮዋ ዳቦ ናት። ስራ ብንጨምርባት የበለጠ ዳቦ ትሆን ነበር። ኢትዮጵያ ላይ ተምረን የኢትዮጵያ ደግሞ ዳቦ ያንሰናል ስራ ያልሰራንበት ማለት ነው። ግን እያለ ጥሩ ሀገር እያለችን ሰርተን ዳቦዋንና ከፍና አድርግ ማለት ሲገባል ወደ ሀገር ሰርተው ያሳደጉት ዳቦ አለ። ከዚያ ዳቦ ማዲ ያምራል። እኔም በማር ጥያት ሀገር ልሄድ ነበር ወይ ይላል። በማር ኑሮ ሀገርን ጥዬ እሄድ ነበር ማለት ነው።
እቅዳችን ትልቅ ነው። ዝም ብለን ማየት የለብንም። እኛም ማንሻገራቸውን ግቢ ወንድሞቻችን እህቶቻችንን እየጠየቅን የሚቀረፈው ችግር እየተቀረፈ መቀጠል አለብን እንጂ ዝም ብለን እንድለን ተቀምጠን ሰው በህራብና በችግር ከሆነ ላይቀጥል ነው ማለት ነው። ኢኮኖሚው መቀየር አለ። አስተሳሰቡ ጥሩ አስተሳሰብ አለ። ደግሞ በኢኮኖሚው ተለውጠው ለልጆቻችንም ነገር እናስረክበውና እንዲቀጥሉት ማድረግ አለብን።
Just a few words, Pat and the committee, thank you so very much for giving the theater program an opportunity to be part of this amazing event. And to our new president, Dr. Johnson, in the theater we have a tradition that it is very bad luck to say good luck on opening. So as you open, we say to you from our hearts, break a leg. In 1891, William Butler Yeats wrote, "How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love, false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face." In this brief stanza, the poet declared his love for a fiery, unattainable woman. Over a century later, the contemporary American playwright Lisa Loomer examines the price women have paid down through the centuries for that prized beauty. We meet an 18th century Chinese woman with bound feet, a 19th century British woman corseted to the point of physical harm, and a 20th century New Jersey woman whose fatal cancer diagnosis is traced to her breast implants. Through the alchemy of drama, they encounter each other and find empathy. And in doing so, they recognize the beauty in their own pilgrim souls. Wellesley College Theater and the Repertory Theater offer a glimpse inside The Waiting Room by Lisa Loomer.
Well, I'm just here to see about getting the ovaries removed.
Are you actually reading that Cosmo?
Take it!
Both ovaries?
Well, we've tried everything else. Injections to the womb, water, tea, milk, a decoction of marshmallow. I've stopped reading and writing. I've stopped stimulating my emotions with opera and French plays. Last week, the doctor placed leeches on my vulva. Some were quite adventurous, actually, and traveled all the way up to the cervical cavity. The pressure from this corset's pushing my uterus out through my vagina. And according to my husband, my hysteria is only getting worse. He says I have all the classic symptoms of ovarian disease: troublesomeness, eating like a plowman, painful menstruation, a desire to learn Greek, attempted suicide, persecution mania, and simple cussedness. Last night, I sneezed continuously for 27 minutes and tried to bite my own husband. What can I do? I shan't be beaten about the face and body with a wet towel like an Irish woman. I just want the damn things out.
Huh. Just the way I feel about my tits.
My dear.
Hi! Oh, hold on. I'm reading an article about breasts.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry to disturb you. It's just, I wanted to return that book to you, the Freud.
Okay.
But the problem is, my husband and I were discussing Freud's theories, and my husband, quite accidentally, of course, dropped Freud into the fire.
Well, don't worry about it. There's a Barnes & Noble downstairs. You want another copy?
Oh, really, no, thank you. I couldn't. Except perhaps if I maybe gave you some money. And you could, because I could read some books here while I'm waiting.
You want me to do a book deal for you? Like run books?
I'd be ever so grateful. Do get a few for yourself as well. But please do hurry. I'd like to finish Freud by my appointment.
Why?
Well, you see, I bit my husband's...
You bit his...
No, his nose! I bit his nose.
Oh.
But, you see, now he wants me to investigate getting a few teeth removed as well, along with the ovaries and the uterus. Perhaps he was just in a foul mood. But I do hope that if I can just find out what is wrong with me, I can convince the doctors that my problems are all in my mind.
Oh, I get it. Kind of like you're copping a plea, yeah?
I beg your pardon?
I'll get Freud. What the hell? I'm in no rush. Hello. Hi.
Pretty dress.
Oh, thank you. Great. Purse.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, fine. Pretty outfit.
Oh, yes, well, the doctor says my corset's constricting my stomach and dislocating my kidneys and crushing my liver and compressing my heart. But it is pretty, isn't it? Your husband?
With other wives.
Nice for you. Your children?
Exhausting.
Your foot?
Little problem with big toe.
Oh, well, I'm sure the doctor can fix it all up.
Fell off this morning.
Heavens to Betsy.
Doctor might have to amputate.
Oh, dear.
What I need a foot for at my age?
But Snow White's wicked old stepmother was also bidden to the wedding feast. And when she went to the mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all?" the mirror answered, "O Queen, although you are of beauty rare, the young bride is 1,000 times more fair." And when the old queen saw Snow White, well, she could not stir from that place for terror, for they had red-hot iron shoes for her, in which she had to dance and dance until she fell down dead. And, oh, of course. And then the prince and Snow White lived happily ever after. Jeez.
Good story.
Uh-huh. If you're young and beautiful, some old broad's gonna knock you off. But if you're ugly or old, you're screwed. These Grimm boys got you coming and going.
Oh, one more story, Mother. Can't sleep. My feet are on fire.
Your turn. Come on.
Okay. Once upon a time, in the Flowery Kingdom, there lived an empress named Tu Chin, and her feet were 12 inches big.
No kidding!
And everybody told the emperor, "What a lucky man you are to have a wife with such big, beautiful feet." Only problem was the empress, she walked in her sleep. So the emperor had 8 inches cut off, so she couldn't roam around in the night and embarrass him. And the empress felt so bad, so ugly. And because the emperor loved her so much, he made all the ladies in the Flowery Kingdom cut their feet real small, so the empress would not die of humiliation. And from then on, all the little girls in the Flowery Kingdom were bound.
Where's the happy ending?
Chinese story. Happy ending not necessary. Maybe happy ending in next life. Tell another, Mother.
Turn on, I don't know, The Tonight Show or something.
Just one more.
suck. Once upon a time, there were 3 sisters, all of them stupid. One thought her feet were too big, one thought her waist was too big, and, well, the really stupid one thought her tits weren't big enough. So they went to a magician and said, "Make us perfect." And the magician held up a magic mirror that made the sisters look like,
Woman in Taurus commercial.
Okay, yeah. And the magician, he said, "You two can look just like this." So the sisters gave him a big pile of gold, and he worked his magic. And then he went off and built a tennis court with their money. But, well, after a few years, you see, the magic started to go bad.
Sister's not lucky.
No. So they went back to the magician and he said, "I said I'd make you perfect. I didn't say you'd be perfect forever. Check out that shingle. It says magician, not God." And the sisters, they were really pissed off. So what did they do?
Wait for luck to change.
No. First they took all the mirrors in the kingdom and they smashed them and they recycled the glass. Then they told all their girlfriends and daughters, "Next time you want to check yourselves out, don't go to the magician. Come to us." So when the women wanted to check out their noses or their thighs or all their other problems, they had to look their sisters in the eyes. And the sisters would say, "Oh, give me a break. You look fine." And, well, the women didn't believe it, because who believes you when you tell them you look good, right? But the sisters kept saying it. "You're beautiful."
Beautiful.
And eventually, the women started to buy it. And, because of that, the magicians, they were doing such lousy business. They all had to pack up and move to Europe. It was like magic. Everybody got kissed. And the ones who wanted to, they got married. And the ones who didn't, they got good jobs in the kingdom. And some got both. And everybody lived a whole lot happier ever after. Forgiveness, do you? Forgiveness? Good night, forgiveness from heaven. Sweet dreams.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this beginning of our new beginning. Each of our speakers has prepared meticulous presentations to share with all of you. Theater, poetry, dance, scholarship, cinema. We've seen the ways that our colleagues intersect in the work that they do and the ways in which they bring multiple voices to everything that they do. We share all of this with our students, and we'll be delighted to share it with you downstairs in the alumni ballroom for a brief reception. Thank you so much.